like we said before, we were talking about the fact that we have optimism, and I do genuinely have I have great optimism, both financially and politically, because I think that we have seen the true colours of these people. It is really good. You got to hit rock bottom before you can rise again, I guess. And seeing the tyranny, see the arrogance, see the way that we have been pushed around for so long, financially and politically. Some of us have stood up, made a bloody lot of noise, and others are following.
If the United States can create a Trump and the UK can create a Nigel Farage, surely Australia can create our version of one.
Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
Edge Radio Australia, you're here with, of course, Derek Whittaker to my right for The Greater Wealth. And it's an absolute pleasure to have someone joining us in just a moment as well, Shaquille Latimer, who will be joining with his, well, often very interesting opinions when it comes to the great land of when we combine the collision that we get with politics and finance and how it changes the world. And my word, we've had a 25 car pile up this week, mate. Let's talk about that collision.
It's so, I'm exhausted. I had to have a nap yesterday. You know what I mean? Trying to keep up with everything that's going on is just absolutely massive, and you can understand that ever since that election of the United States, the world has changed.
It really has.
It literally has changed on so many levels, and it's trying to keep up with it all and determine how is this going to play out economically, and work for the average Joe. Whether they be in Australia or whether they be in the United States or anyone around the world for that matter. Putting it in context, the US is the biggest economic market, and when it sneezes, the world feels it. And so that's why we have to take this global perspective of what's going on.
Completely agree. Well, a man who likes to think global, as I say, you've just actually attached yourself to the old telecast. It's good to see you there, Shaq. Where are you today?
I'm in another undisclosed location.
Oh, you really have become Edge Radio Australia's Batman. Okay, we don't quite know where you're coming from. So, Gary Ginsberg, hang on, is that how you?
Gary Gensler.
Gensler, sorry, wrong Gary. Very much the wrong Gary. Hang on, I got that wrong. But look, this is the guy that when Trump spoke about at that crypto conference,
Bitcoin 2024,
everyone went wild, absolutely wild.
He said on that speech that from day one, I will fire Gary Gensler.
Yes, that's right.
And then he repeated it twice after that because he said, I didn't know that was that popular. And then the crowd just went absolutely nuts.
They did.
So
indeed,
we have seen over the last few weeks the stock market go up.
Yep.
We've also seen the crypto market go zingo.
Oh.
Even while the election hadn't even been announced yet, the result, Travis gives me a call and says, hey, have you seen what's happening to Bitcoin? I hadn't, and it was up 10% when the Republicans were there, and it hadn't been declared who the winner was.
That's right.
This is how much the emotion is. Now, why they were cheering at that Bitcoin 2024 is Gary Gensler is seen, who is the head of the SEC, which is kind of like the equivalent of Australia's ASIC.
Right.
He's had a lot of lawsuits against crypto providers in the United States.
Yes.
And we've had the one with Ripple go on for 4 years, drag on.
Yeah.
That's been back and forth. They've even gone against different kind of companies that provide the platforms that provide exchanges that provide access to cryptos. And so the crypto community is kind of like done with it and they're over it.
Very much so.
And they're kind of like, look, you need to embrace this technology because other nations are. If you don't, other nations are going to be left behind. And it's interesting what he said at this week during a speech at the Practicing Law Institute's 56th Annual Institute on Securities Regulation in New York. He said it on Thursday the 14th, and he basically suggested that he may be stepping down soon.
Oh, geez, just a little popular.
He was clarifying his stance on cryptocurrencies, that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins are not classified as securities. He reaffirmed that most other cryptocurrencies, including Ripple's XRP, meet the criteria for securities under the Howey test.
Yep.
And then he basically said towards the end of his speech, near the conclusion, it's been a great honour to serve with them and doing the people's work and ensuring that our capital markets remain the best in the world. And it's kind of like, wow, that was uncalled for. Why did he just make that statement?
Quite a statement,
and
really.
People are reading into that and going, wow. As a result, the crypto market went very big at that announcement.
Well, I think, well, even just before you were talking about when Trump won the election. Now, okay, by my calculations, Bitcoin went up, I think it was 48%. Yeah, it's massive, massive change. And obviously there's volatility to all these things. But if that is an endorsement of well, exactly what Damo's put on the screen there, it's going to be, good times. I think that we can see a lot of prosperity. We can see so much financial and social change coming our way. People are excited. We can see a new era.
They are. And what's interesting about it is it sets the tone, because if the United States doesn't do these sort of things, they've already had the BRICS nations coming after the US dollar.
True.
That whole thing where they put Russia on sanctions with the war was very, very...
well, I'd say stupid personally, but,
It was a bad economic decision because most people interpret that as going, hey, he's weaponizing the US dollar, and especially the SWIFT system that does cross-border payments at the moment. And so that was a huge setback for them, and mistrust. And so these other nations are going, right, well, let's form our own bank, let's form our own currency. We're talking, about 45% of the world's economies when you look at the world's economy, when you look at the BRICS nations. It's massive.
It's huge. Well, it is most of the earth, but yeah, percentage-wise, just under half of the actual financial side of things.
And geographically and economically, when you look at BRICS, you've got Brazil, okay, they're the wealthiest as far as South America is concerned. You've got South Africa in it as well, the wealthiest in Africa. And of course, you've got Russia, India, and China. So
and Saudi Arabia,
Well, they've come on since. These were the forming countries. And then now the Middle East is wanting to jump on. So this is a big, big change. So either the United States gets on board with this or it's going to be left behind.
Yeah, I completely agree. They forced their hands. I was one of the people who thought that we were going to see a real destruction of the US dollar. I thought we were going to see it probably fail. But with the changes, that's based on information of sort of 18 months ago, I guess. Well, the changes we've seen in the political, obviously in the last little period, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think that's, it's been the saving grace there. Look, both of you guys obviously, are so on top of this. As I say, myself as someone who's got my toe in the water financially, if you like, I really did. I saw this, the strength of the BRICS nations, how well it was all coming on, the way that the American politicians, Biden administration, were weaponizing the US dollar. I really saw it as something that was going to make it absolutely crash. But with what's happened politically, with obviously Trump winning office, with the positivity now given to cryptocurrency, to me, I think that may have changed things. I mean, maybe it's not going to crash anymore.
The rest of the world is looking and going, everything's changed.
Yeah.
Not just on the finance stuff, but politically, and of course, as politics links so much to economics. So they're really reassessing things and going, where we go from here? What is he going to do? Because one thing with Trump, he is not going to mess. He's got nothing to lose. He's got 4 years to serve. Yeah. And he can't stand for election again after that.
No, he can't.
So he's going to, he's got nothing to lose in the sense of, hey, let's go for it. In our previous show, Shaq made a great point, and I've been saying this too, is that thank goodness he didn't do successive terms, because he would not have had the power to do what he's done if he had won back in 2020. It's very unlikely.
And he's got so many great people on board now that he wouldn't have had on board.
Yeah.
It would have been, just that rollover sort of administration. We've got a question in here, or a comment from Damo, and as you know, it is a question indeed. Now, will we get better at fixing our power prices in Australia based on Trump winning office? What are your thoughts there, Matt?
I think it's going to be interesting to see where US goes in terms of its energy policy from here. And I think that will determine a lot in terms of commodity prices, how that rolls out to the rest of the world. Trump is sort of going, hey, back to oil. Drill,
Sure.
baby, drill.
Yep.
And the whole green energy where you've got, ridiculous windmills to try to generate power. The most
Please
inefficient
stop
thing.
calling them windmills. Yeah, they're just not
Well,
windmills.
the greenies don't even talk about how much bird life they kill and that sort of
No.
stuff. And all that gets ignored. Plus, they're probably good for about 5 years, and then they start needing maintenance. Plus, you've got diesel generators trying to push them to keep them
There is
turning.
nothing environmentally
It's just-
friendly about wind turbines. They are a complete fraud.
It's crazy. And I hear from some of my good contacts, they're trying to bring them into the southwest here of Australia, the
Oh.
WA.
Well, we're doing a lot of that actually with Martini's EcoBites here. So we've got Martine who is looks after the eco side of Edge here, and she's down there in the Geograph Bay area. And there's so much negativity towards these because they're trying to put them out there in front of all the Margaret River area, all through there, all through bus. It's just disgusting.
But what's happening is that I think we're getting different alternative forms of energy starting to emerge. And I think Perth's becoming a bit of a testing ground for that energy in conjunction with Tesla.
Sure.
I don't have all that information at hand because I didn't think we were going to go down this path today. But what I'm saying to Damo is that energy in the way it goes is going to be a space that I think is going to be revolutionised in the next few years.
I hope so. Just on that question about getting rid of the windmills. Well, again, please stop. And why I'm doing this is because I keep calling them windmills. So I'm trying to teach myself, no. Because windmills, we tend to think of something that is genuinely environmentally friendly. I mean, the old days of a windmill that would draw water. These things are not in any way. They're disgraceful in every possible way. When they're using terminology like wind farms, this is purely to soften up. This is psychological sort of ways of playing with words to sell
the message.
Sell, no matter how you swing it. So, great point there, Dame. I really appreciate and really love the interaction, mate. I do want to pivot a little bit though, because we've just talked about obviously the Gary factor. Let's talk about crypto as far as that swing across.
So a lot of the crypto enthusiasts and the bigger players there are trying to have meetings with Trump and get to that point where they're going, can we, get some clarity on the industry?
Sure. And
how can we improve that? Letting crypto companies operate freely in the United States is really what they're wanting, some clarity and less red tape. With, of course, the SEC holding a lot of that back in lawfare and those sort of things. After years in the political wilderness, cryptos are scrambling to get a bit of a wish list together for him in terms of the President-elect Donald Trump. They want key personnel in the new administration to end that regulatory crackdown, first of all, on crypto companies.
Yep.
They're also looking at how they can get some work with the transition team to arrange a conversation between some of the big players like Coinbase, the crypto exchange, has been looking at getting some conversations between them and the new administration. In terms of getting that, Brad Garlinghouse, the chief executive of Ripple, said he has spoken with people close to Trump about personal decisions for the new administration. So they want to know who they're going to be talking to, who they're going to be dealing with in this space. And they really are wanting to get top priority as far as the SEC, some aggressively clarity as to where we stand on the legislation. The Dan Gallagher, Chief Legal Officer for Robinhood, another big finance and crypto app, they're talking about these sort of things. Will he be a candidate for that position? That's being discussed. Chris Giancarlo, a former regulator, has also served as an advisor to crypto companies, one of the people said. So they're looking at who's going to be the ones that we're going to be dealing with and doing deals with, and we're just getting clarity from where that all plays out.
Well, I want to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to all of this. The big news and things that are changing in the wonderful world, the thing we love talking about, tax.
You want to talk about that one?
I want to talk about tax.
You want the happy dog
story?
Yeah,
I want the happy surfing dog story.
So I was saving the best for
last week. Should we wait? Come on.
No, we'll get to the point. You let the cat out of the bag now. So Trump is reportedly considering a groundbreaking plan to eliminate capital gains taxes on US-issued cryptocurrencies. Okay, so that would be tax-free for American investors.
So just think about that. Okay. No capital gains on crypto. Now, okay.
For US companies.
For US companies. So does that mean, hang on, do I just get my passport now? Do I start heading towards the US? This is massive. Mm-hmm. You think about how many people who use crypto for argument's sake, or you pump it through their super, do all sorts of things, and then get smashed, absolutely smashed with capital gains tax, losing half of it. And it de-incentivizes you, I guess, to investing in the first place.
Yep.
Right? To me, this has got, well, I mean, I could rattle off so many reasons why this is positive, but obviously for the small-time investor, for the mum and dad investor, these are the people I care about, the people who can actually, improve their lives that way. Fantastic. This is a really good thing. But also for America, full stop, and again, the flow-on effect, but the amount of money and business this will bring into the US. Well, you're bringing the right people. You're not importing people from Venezuelan prisons here. You're bringing people into the country who are going to contribute to the economy.
What it's going to do is it's going to encourage Americans to invest in American cryptocurrencies. Yep. That's where, in terms of money flow is concerned. Secondly, it's going to boost that in terms of how big hedge funds and that set themselves up. We've seen a lot of ETFs, exchange traded funds, come up around crypto. Mm-hmm. That will influence their decisions as well, if they can do that tax-free. But it goes further than that, because there is a rumour too that if crypto businesses relocate to the United States, they could also take advantage of this new tax exemption. Exactly. So if you have a company in the UK, perhaps in England, who are doing that, could they also become that American company now and relocate?
Well, I'll make it very clear. How many countries, how many companies are now based in Ireland because of the tax, okay? Ireland has had this incredible increase in involvement from all over the world where the companies are being based there now because the tax rate is so much more attractive. What are your thoughts there, Shaq?
Well, that's why I have one of my companies in Ireland for that reason, but it was also because of ease of doing business. I think with low taxes or no taxes means that you don't have to actually fill out a whole paperwork every year. It's just done. You don't need to worry about it. And so I think ease of doing business is a big thing. My concern with the US is, yes, they might make this change now, but in 4 years' time, is it going to be changed again? And this is one of the destabilizing things about the United States, that every time there's an election and the other party wins, they make all these sorts of changes. If Kamala Harris had a vote, can you imagine? If Kamala Harris had won, she was talking about introducing an unrealized capital gains tax. So it makes it very difficult to plan things out. The other thing I'll just say with crypto, I really love this idea of no capital gains tax on it. I think that's wonderful. There are some futures contracts that don't have capital gains tax. And there are other futures contracts where you've got the 60-40 rule, where the 60% of your gain is treated as a long-term capital gain, even if you've only held the futures contract for a short period of time. But what I would be concerned about, what I think they're going to need to clarify, is if you are trading a lot and frequently, whether they will consider that to be normal income as opposed to a capital gain. So in New Zealand, for example, there is no capital gains tax, but New Zealand's rules, this is what they say, and I love these sorts of rules. It says, if you intend to make a profit, then it can be deemed to be a taxable income. So I say to New Zealand, so you want me to enter into investments in the hope that I'm going to lose money? Is that the plan? So,
it's fair, bro.
as long as the government is able to actually legislate this in a way that makes sense, then I think that'll be fun.
Okay. Well, legislation and making sense, that could be an oxymoron right there. The point that's just come up on the screen too, as businessmen, are you guys excited about the future? I will answer very, very, very simply, yes. And if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, no. So that's how much the election has changed my thoughts, because all of these opportunities, because in business, you're always looking for opportunities, even when things look bad. Like say the stock market is down the gurgler, okay? Now, a lot of people think that's a terrible thing. If you're in business or you're an investor, you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, yeah, baby, this is when you buy. this is the time you buy. So opportunity 101. And right now, as far as excitement of the future, yeah, definitely that's definitely something that is on the cards.
I think we're excited about it on a number of levels. One, because if the United States becomes wealthy and does better, then the world feels that, because of course it's the biggest economy in the world and has that effect across the globe that other nations benefit from and prosper. Secondly, it also encourages other nations to become more competitive. So, this proposal by Trump alone puts it now in more of a crypto-friendly environment. If this goes through, like Dubai has, right? So Dubai has these kind of legislation. Now Dubai doesn't quite have the edge that it may have had before in relation to the United States wanting to do that, right?
Yeah.
The UK has got to look at itself. It's got a very left government right now. And if it wants to stay, with the AUKUS deal with Australia, United States and UK, suddenly these lefties are dealing with a complete opposite. They've got to change. They've got to move, because the biggest player, the biggest kid on the block,
you got no choice.
Is changing things up.
You got to play by the rules of the game that you want to be involved with. Yeah.
Yeah. So, from that perspective, less tax, less regulatory requirements. It's a great thing. Probably the ones that lose the most are the accountants who have to charge money to advise their clients on the tax rules around crypto. They're probably losing in that respect. But some of them are also already.
They won't lose, because people need to have their assets and investments structured quite well. I'm in Rose Bay. It's one of the wealthiest areas in Australia. Surely we can have frickin' internet. But anyway, that's one little whinge over.
Look, you can get better internet in a third world country than you can in Australia. So you're asking far too much there, Shaq. You're unreasonable. Jeez, you're entitled.
What I like about what's happening in the United States, and I think where the world's going, is we're seeing a lot of countries trying to move towards a higher tax environment, and we're seeing countries that are trying to be competitive. So some countries in Europe, some countries in Asia, the Middle East, they're trying to lower taxes in order to be more attractive. And this is the first time we've seen what I refer to as a legacy country, so the United States, actually moving towards a lower tax environment. And that's great. And hopefully we'll start to see that happen. I mean, this Albanese, this moderate change to the superannuation rules, that moderate small increase was a doubling of the tax. If you're over the threshold, your tax doubles, the rate doubles. How is that moderate and small? It's not. What they try to do is they try to look at where most people are going to sit, and then they go to the maximum pain points. Okay, most people are going to be under 3 million, so we'll put the level there, and we'll double the tax after 3 million. The problem with that is that if you're 20 or 30 today, you're likely to have more than 3 million in your super by the time you retire because of inflation. And what we already know under both Liberal and Labor governments, they didn't index your earnings when it came to your pensions. They didn't index that. So what we're going to see is they're going to put the level there, and then they're not going to adjust it. So those people who are in their early 20s now, they go, oh yeah, who cares? It's only for the rich. No, it's not. It's going to end up hitting you. And they're also talking about inheritance taxes. They're talking about wealth taxes. They're talking about all these different taxes. And, okay, they haven't passed yet, but the very fact that they're even talking about it shows you the direction they want to go in. So when you've got a country like the United States, a powerful country, that's talking about reducing taxation obligations and letting you keep more of your money, I think that's a really positive thing. I think we were talking about BRICS nations before. You've got 1/3 of the world's economy under sanction. Does it come as any surprise that 1/3 of the world decides, you know what, we're going to trade with each other?
Yeah.
Right? I've been saying since I was a teenager, it's only a matter of time before the Middle Eastern countries decide to depeg their currency from the US dollar. Why wouldn't you do that? For all of my criticism of the euro, why would you, if you're a sovereign nation, peg your currency to the US dollar when you've got oil wealth? Just free float your currency. So I think there's going to be significant changes coming up. And I actually think that we're going to be better for it. We're going to be more competitive for it. And that's got to be a positive. So to Damo's question is, how do you feel as business people? Look, I'm really optimistic, and I have to say that I feel much more optimistic today with Trump winning than I have done really at any other time in my adult life, because I really feel like we're going to move in the right direction. We've seen Europe lose its bloody mind. I don't know what's going on in the UK. It feels like the UK and Australia are so focused on misinformation rules and voice and this and that. What they're focusing on isn't really what I think, maybe I'm wrong, but what I think most people actually want from their government. We've got government focusing on all the things that don't matter to us, and the things that do matter to us are being left by the wayside. We have issues that we should be focusing on, like education and healthcare and infrastructure and etc. And we never hear our politicians talking about that stuff anymore.
I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. But a couple of points have just come up, and basically one here ago about Albo has to go. Well, I don't disagree with that. Thoroughly agree. And the fact that you used to vote for Labor. Now, the thing is, so many people used to vote for Labor and still do, because they believe they're the party of the worker, and that's what has been indoctrinated into us over generation after generation, right? The fact of the matter is, no, what you're saying about them, the priority should be education, this, that, and whatever. And I thoroughly 1,000% agree with you. What they're doing at the moment is distraction 101. They're just moving the shells around so they can get what they want done. And the misinformation, disinformation, all of that kind of carry on is the most disgusting attack on the population that I think I've seen in my lifetime. It doesn't seem like it's good, because it's not a physical attack. It's nothing disgusting like what they've done in the wars before or that. But you are taking away the power and the voice of the people, and you're basically just putting you in the hands of socialists and communists. So that's a big, big thing for me. The other thing too that has come in, I've got a couple of questions I'd like to fire through if I may. The other question here as well is, will they bring in inheritance tax? Please say no. I wish I could say no, Damo, but I'll tell you right now, the Albanese government are hell bent on it. They want it so much. So they've got we've been talking about...
And the Greens.
And the Greens. The Greens, remember, the Greens are the most dangerous party, because they need, and for that matter, Labor, the two of them need each other for power. Without each other, they're fundamentally useless, right? They are the watermelon party, okay? They're green on the outside, they're red on the inside. They are socialists and communists. And the damage that they're doing, it is just phenomenal. We talked about capital gains. Capital gains, when you're trying to get ahead by selling an asset. Well, they say, but the family home's not touched by that. Well, yes, it is. We're just going to now make it an inheritance.
Put it this way,
disgusting.
The accountants I work with are already planning for inheritance taxes to come in. They're already advising their clients around those sort of rules.
Yeah, completely disgraceful in every possible way.
Because once they start talking about it, then they're talking about it, this is what they're planning on doing. Correct. And it makes no sense. And you know what? You can go to some of the highest tax places in the world, like Sweden and the other Nordic countries. They don't have an inheritance tax, because it's such an unfair thing. You've already paid tax when you earn the money.
Mm-hmm.
You then go and buy an asset, and you're going to get taxed again. It's ridiculous. And then what they do, they say, okay, well, older people start to give their assets away to their children while they're alive. So they bring in, like the US has, a gift tax. It's like, how much do you want? How much does the government really want to take from people? But the real sad thing about it is the very, very wealthy have got all sorts of structures available to them, from trust, overseas corporations, all sorts of different things that they can use. It doesn't hurt the very, very wealthy. It hurts the up-and-coming people, right? And that's the problem, because people, the new money, the people that are actually creating stuff, that all of a sudden they've made, $500 million, by some grand idea that they've had, those are the ones that get hurt. And the person who's got a similar wealth status, but has had that wealth status for generations, doesn't get hurt at all. So all that these sorts of things do with these sorts of taxes and regulations is it keeps down the people that aspire for greatness. And it's so wrong.
And as a population, we should be inspiring people to actually want to improve their lives, right? This is such a big thing. Catherine's come in with a great comment here, or question as well. Would there be a movement of taxpayers to lower tax states in the US? Gentlemen?
Look, I think It's an interesting one because I think a lot of people are hesitant to move because they've got a network of people, etc. They've got friends and family that live in Melbourne. Otherwise, why would you bother living in California? But I do think you are beginning to see people move to other places. Texas, Florida, of course, has no income tax, but they've got higher property taxes. Wyoming, there's a lot of billionaires moving to Wyoming now for business operations. Delaware, Nevada, a number of other states, Alaska, can be great places to locate. I think the real question isn't really about what Americans are going to do, because even if Americans leave the United States, they still have to pay taxes to the US, even if they don't live there. The real question is, what do foreign investors do? See, foreign investors, do they want to come to the United States in the first place because of the tax regime? So some of these changes, I think, that Trump's talking about may actually entice people to come over. And if I can just take a moment to get sidetracked, this is one of the issues that I think with immigration. See, fair enough, you've got people that want to try and create a better life for themselves. There are ways to do that. You don't just let 20 million or 10 million or whatever number you want to pick stream across your border. That makes no sense. There are ways of being able to do that if you want to have immigration. But the damage that gets done is that when people are coming from third world countries, you're not getting the entrepreneurial business people from those third world countries. Those people are not likely to want to break the rules. They're not likely to want to cross the border illegally and then, wait it out, because they've got businesses off their own, they're successful. And those are the people that are pushed to the back of the queue while you let all these other people come in. It doesn't make any sense. So between taxation and regulations, silly immigration policies, and everything else that stacks the deck against people, what you're doing is you're making it really difficult for those people who are the most likely to be successful and to add to the wealth of your country. You're making it most difficult for them to come in. Doesn't make any sense.
That style of immigration is all about buying votes. It is all about creating a slave labor of votes, if you like. That's all it's about. It is not about increasing the value of the country and doing anything positive for the country. So many great comments coming in, my word. Absolutely fantastic. Let's just, hang on, I'm going to fire through here. Let's see what we've got here. There we go. Now, the minute we have a candidate that states less tax, less public service, and no woke baloney, they will win hands down. Well, they'll certainly have my vote. And certainly anybody who has that philosophy, they have the right to a seat here at Edge Radio Australia to actually, share those thoughts. And that's the thing. You'll find that the media will actually, to a big extent, gatekeep and stop those people from actually being able to come forward. So ourselves and other independent media, that's a good reason to get on board for sure, because that way you can actually hear the right thing.
So look at what's happening in New Zealand. So New Zealand had a flat tax, 30% tax on income, no capital gains tax. No capital gains tax. And that worked brilliantly. Now, we here in Australia had a much more progressive taxation system. They got rid of all the progression and just made it 3 rates. So the lowest rate, 30%, 45% plus Medicare levy. Mm-hmm. Now, New Zealand's got a 15% GST. We've got a 10% GST. New Zealand gets 33% of its GDP in taxes. We only get 27%. So actually, their system, which is much more simple, no capital gains tax, again, if I remind everybody, and they're receiving more tax revenue to the government. The great Jacinda Ardern, I won't criticise her too heavily for this. I'll let her off the hook for this. But what did she decide to do? She decided to increase the tax rates. And what's happened? Do they end up with more money? No, because it doesn't work. It just makes no sense to do this. And the thing is that, in my opinion, I'm going to let her off the hook because in her mind, she probably did think that increasing tax rates was going to lead to more revenue, and it was during COVID. So I'll let her off the hook. But we've seen the Nationals win the election, and they haven't rolled it back. Yeah, they've left it the way it is, right? So, you look at this stuff and you go, look, why would they do this, especially if they know that it's not actually going to increase revenue? I think they do it because they want to try and divide people. They're like, hey, look, that rich person over there, they're the ones hoarding all the money. If we just took some more of their money and got them to pay their fair share, right? You'd be able to have this or that or whatever. Rubbish. It's nonsense. It's just an excuse for them to try to get more power.
People don't climb up by tearing others down, okay? You actually climb up by actually helping each other and working together to move everybody up. This tall poppy thing drives me batty. Your thoughts there, Derek?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you teach children, work hard and you'll get ahead in life. And of course, then we have a taxation system that punishes them for doing really well. That's right. It just doesn't make sense, the reality of that. And I think if you have, look at, I was in Singapore. I think it's fantastic what they go, a 17% company tax rate. Fantastic. That attracts people to do business in Singapore.
Sure does.
And it's smart because it's a nation that doesn't have the resources in terms of, dirt to dig up like we do to actually make wealth. They have to be smarter in the way they do that and how they position themselves. But we've got to get out of the tall poppy syndrome situation. We really have got to get away from this appeal to the poor to try to attract. When hard times come, they do that. These rich need to pay their fair share. It only pushes them away when you do that. They'll just go, fine, we're out of here. We'll go to a nation that pays less tax and has less regulation, and the nation is poorer for it because it doesn't provide the employment and jobs that are required to get an economy going.
I'll tell you right now, I sit here and I am the poor, okay? And I'm telling you right now, I don't want to stay there. I want to aspire. I want to work hard. I want to drag myself out of that, right? And by rewarding mediocrity all the time, all you're going to do is reward those and keep people in that world. Whereas if you take away the tall poppy kind of syndrome of this, when you take away the negativity about wanting to grow and succeed, you actually encourage people rather than step on them, you'll get more people like, I'm not saying I'm the glowing example here, but in my existence, I've had wealth before, I've lost wealth, I've, made poor decisions, yada, 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 but I want to succeed. And that fire in the belly is something that you should be inspiring a population to have. It is better for everyone.
You don't want people on welfare.
You don't create wealth by dividing it. That's the first thing. Secondly, it's not about turning the wealthy, turn their backs on the poor. It's not about that. There are things that most people in most societies will happily agree to and support and be happy to pay for. Healthcare, education, etc. Nobody wants to see some child going to hospital and that the hospital doesn't have the equipment or the medical facilities in order to help that sick child. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see our older Australians left without dignity, having to rely on food banks. It just breaks my heart. Every time I talk about this, it breaks my heart. Now, we have older Australians today living on a pension. You have to go to food banks. You have to skip meals in order to feed their cats and dogs. They've got 15 and 20-year wait lists to get into state housing. I mean, it's disgraceful. Nobody that I know supports that. Everybody wants to make sure that we have great infrastructure. We've got nice roads. We've got healthcare. We've got education. We've got things that work. We have a police department that is well funded. We have an ambulance system and a fire brigade and all that sort of, we want all these things. The thing is that we're seeing our government, one, they talk about things that nobody's, where was the public pressure for a misinformation bill? Nobody wanted that. We've got governments focusing on things that are just totally out of whack with where everyday Australians are. And we have governments that are deliberately ignoring all of these issues. And you know what? I'm 40. I turn 41 next month. My entire life, every election, they talk about funding, education and healthcare, etc. Both parties. Every election they talk about it. How about you just fix it, right? How about you just fix this stuff? I'm so sick and tired of it, and this is where the problem is, because all they want to do is just keep passing more regulations, keep trying to get more taxes, and you sit there and you're like, come on, we're better than this, and we shouldn't have to live like this. I mean, it's about bloody time that Australians stand up and say, it's our country, these are our rights, and we're taking it back.
What's the greatest thing about Australia? It's apathy. What's the worst thing about Australia? It's apathy, right? She'll be right. There lies the problem, right? We do that, which is a great thing, but the negative side of it. Damo's got a great point here. Well, that I want to flow in from. So as my wife says, you pay tax on what you earn, what you spend, what you earn in interest on your money, yet you have to pay to see the doctor or go to school or pay high power for broken roads and broken internet. Okay, I'm sure there's something wrong there. This is so true. Now, okay, Again, don't want to go and bore everyone to death. I've just spent some more time in the bloody hospital, all right? And I can't tell you how broken that system is. It's an embarrassment. It's an utter embarrassment. What went on with me over the last few days is not because of the wonderful people in the hospital, because there was nothing wrong with the human beings. The systems were broken because of the cost cutting. It was off the charts. And this is something fundamentally so important. When I see our Prime Minister who wanted to spend, what was it, $500 million on trying to split us up on race. When I see a state government who, last couple of years spent $500 million on little test kits that didn't work and they had to throw into landfill, right? I see this incredible waste. And then I see the fact that you can't get medication. When I was thrown out of hospital at night with no painkillers and no antibiotics, because now it's off premises now. It's outsourced to your local chemist. Disgusting. Shouldn't happen. Not in this country. It's a first world country. Not on. So yeah, I thoroughly agree with Damo's point there, and we've got some wonderful points coming through, and I sort of want to get through.
And again, right? What are we paying our money for? See, you know what? I'm going to just take Sweden. So Sweden, huge tax rates, right? 50, 60% tax rates. You know what? You go to Sweden, the Swedes are actually pretty happy. They're pretty happy because everything works and they can question their government. And also something that a lot of people don't know about Sweden, corporate tax rate, 20%, 21%, I think it is. Okay. But they don't game the system. So unlike what we're seeing in Western countries, especially US, where prosecutors will trawl through the almost unlimited amount of regulations and laws they've got in order to find some creative way that they come after you. What Sweden does is if you're in breach of regulation, they'll actually work with you and they'll say, hey, you're not complying with this. How can we help you to be able to comply with it? And if you can't comply with it because it's just too onerous, they'll then go back and report it to the minister and say, hey, this company's operating and we've got this regulation that's having this unintended consequence. Maybe we need to change the regulation. Now, I'm not trying to paint too rosy a picture. Every country has its problems, including Sweden. But it's beautiful. Now, what we've got, and I was talking to people about Sweden. I said, look, the problem that you would have with these sort of tax rates is what do the very, very wealthy do? And the Swiss politicians say the very wealthy know how to use trusts and offshore businesses, etc., in order to reduce their tax obligations. So they can do that. So they pay their 60% taxes up until a certain point, and the rest of their assets are in these structures. Now, back in 2012, sorry if I'm boring everybody. Back in 2012, Sweden started a special type of an account. It's called an ISK account, right? You can invest in shares, and it's available to everybody. You can invest in shares, futures, whatever you want to invest in, okay? Your tax rate is 1/3 of the risk-free rate. So in other words, you don't have to pay any capital gains. The money sits in your name, okay, and you're paying around 1.2% in taxes per annum. 1.2%. So why I say that is, what Sweden has done is it's created a high income taxes because the people that are working are able to access all of those benefits, healthcare and education, sick pay. If they're not working, they're looked after, they're going to be fine. It's a great place to do business because it's not hard to fire somebody if you're a startup business. Why is it not difficult to fire somebody? Because you're not going to devastate their life if you fire somebody. So you can take risks. So Sweden has actually set that system up. And then they've set up a system where if you are making good money, now you've already paid tax, but now if you make good money and you want to invest it, how about we give you an account where you only have to pay 1% in taxes per annum on your account balance and everything else is yours to keep? That's so-called high-tax Sweden. And we sit here in Australia and let our politicians carry on the way they do. It's ridiculous. And as some of our viewers are talking about with the GP, bulk billing. Now, most people, you go to a doctor, you've got to pay $70, $100, whatever. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, especially if they're on a pension or something like that, they don't have it. Like, oh, you would just swipe your Medicare card, and then you swipe your bank card, the money goes back into your account straight away. Some people don't have the $70 in the first place. What are they supposed to do? It's just the whole system here. I'm shocked that more people aren't completely fed up. We should be marching on Parliament every day saying enough.
What are you going to do? You know what you're going to do? You're going to stand up to it. That's what you're going to do.
You got to realise that at the moment, the way things are in the parliaments is that the opposition isn't there.
No.
So the people are the opposition.
Yeah.
We are the opposition, guys. And that's what I saw, especially with the sweeping results in the last West Australian election. I said, right, we're the people who've got to stand up and start resisting here.
It's made a big difference, hasn't it? Really has, Derek.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, okay, maybe that's the great silver lining here. And, you know, like we said before, we were talking about the fact that we have optimism. And I do genuinely have I have great optimism, both financially and politically, because I think that we have seen the true colours of these people. It is really good. You got to hit rock bottom before you can rise again, I guess. And seeing the tyranny, see the arrogance, see the way that we have been pushed around for so long financially and politically. Some of us have stood up, made a bloody lot of noise, and others are following, because people need a bit of a...
Well, information's leaking out with the internet. And, you know, you've got Uncle so-and-so overseas, you know, he's talking about how changes are happening in the US and all this sort of stuff. And people starts going, well, hey, why aren't we doing this in our country?
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part about it. It's catching. And if you don't, and you want to still retain power as a politician, you better change.
Thank you for your great comments,
You know,
by the way.
if the United States can create a Trump and the UK can create a Nigel Farage, surely Australia can create our version of one.
I think they gave it a go with, what's his name? Was the leader of the opposition, did the terrible handshake, then went to One Nation. Complete mental blank here.
Oh, the Labor guy.
Yeah.
I don't think. I've forgotten his name too off the top of my head, but I don't think that he was the right person for it. And you know what? She's probably not quite right for it, but she's close enough. I'm going to tell you, I really like Pauline Hanson. You know, like she's a real fighter, and again, she's somebody that they've just put through hell. I mean, they jailed her for a period of time, for goodness sakes. You know, like they've gone after that woman so much, and you know, I really like her tenacity. I really do. Probably not the right person to be, you know, the Prime Minister, but you know, we need somebody who's got that drive, that sort of thick skin. That's just like, yes, we're gonna go for it. Otherwise, what you end up with is people like myself that go, I'm not going to butt heads with government. I'm not going to spend my whole life fighting and arguing with them. I'm going to leave. And that's why I left Australia in the first place. Mark Latham, thank you, Catherine. That's exactly who we were talking about.
Thank you.
But we move our businesses offshore, we move ourselves offshore, and we don't live here anymore in these countries because we don't want to put up with stuff. And you know, I had a very high-ranking politician say to me, in one of the airport lounges, and said, well, yeah, don't you feel like you're not being particularly patriotic? I said, not being patriotic. I couldn't even get licensed to do what I wanted to do here. I had to go overseas just in order to set up the business up in the first place. Then you want me to come back to Australia while I still can't operate if I was here in Australia, and then give you half? Half. You guys think that you are as responsible for my success as I am. Are you kidding me? And he goes, also, is this why you're going to all these tax haven countries? I'm like, first of all, not going to tax haven countries at all. You know, I could actually live in countries where it's far cheaper than what I pay in the countries that I am taxable in, but I'm happy to pay the taxes there. But the real thing is ease of business, not having to fill out mountains and mountains of paperwork, not having to itemize every deduction and everything. You just sit there, you look at your thing, one page, and you're done, right? Yeah. That's what you want, because I don't want to have to spend all my time trying to comply with your regulations. What I want to do is I want to spend all my time trying to work out how to make money, how to make profit, how to increase my customer base, etc., etc. That's what we're trying to do.
And that's why a lot of people move away, sadly. That's why they say, see you later. We're off. But I think, you know, again, I think this is a wake-up call to politicians. Things are changing. and they've got to take notice, because if they don't, there's two arms to this. There is the retaining of power. You put yourself in you've got to think like the politician does, right? There's the retaining of power and wanting to win another election. Okay, and you've got a lot of public servants who want to be public servants for life and just kind of fly under the radar and survive, right?
Yep.
Trump calls them the survivors. Then you've got the other ones who are going, you know what, we've got to think about foreign policy here and how we sit in relation to these other nations as things are changing. I mean, case in point, bringing it back, sounds like we're doing the big weave, bringing it back, case in point, all these nations were going, if Trump reduces capital gains tax on US-based cryptocurrency companies, how are we going to respond to that? What incentives are we going to give companies that are making cryptocurrency in our nation to be able to stay and remain competitive and have an economic edge as far as the international finance world is concerned?
Look,
reverse the argument. Sorry, Aaron.
No, you go. I was going to bring something else up. This is
reverse the argument. You know, when Kamala Harris was talking about increasing taxes, getting rid of some of Donald Trump's tax cuts, which has the effect of increasing taxes. And then she talked about increasing corporate rate of tax back to 28%. So my question is, okay, let's reverse the argument. If you think that's going to lead to economic growth, why not increase taxes more? See, when we have a financial catastrophe, the government's always cut taxes. So if these left parties believe that increasing taxes is better for the economy, then why don't you say to the population, hey, we're going to increase taxes in order to boost the economy? Run on that platform. Say, look, Australia, the top tax rate is 45%, and it's not high enough, right? We're going to flatten the tax rate. We're going to have everybody pay, and we're going to take 90%. Because if we take 90% of all the income earned by all Australians, that will boost the economy. Well, if that sounds absolutely ridiculous, then why should we ever accept them saying that they want to increase taxes? It doesn't make sense, so we shouldn't accept it. All right? Taxes, we should break down our taxes. There are certain things that, yes, we all agree we have to pay for, social services, etc. Right? Outside of that, it's not the government's money to piss away. It's ours. And we just need to get them out of the way. So put it straight on them. When they say that they want to increase taxes because increasing taxes is going to boost the economy, ask them, why don't you do that with your foreign policy? Why don't you go to some of the poorest countries in the world, right, the developing countries, and say, look, guys, if you really want to have a robust economy, the best way for you to do that is to pull all of the money out of the free market and put it in government hands. Why isn't that our foreign policy? If it's not our foreign policy, there's a reason for it. It's because it's absolute bullshit and doesn't make any sense. So again, we need to stand up to our government and say, what you're saying doesn't make sense. We know it doesn't make sense. Get your hands off our money.
Well, very, very good point. And a point come up there as well from Catherine. It is, Australia should have the lowest cost of energy in the world, yet our cost per kilowatt is amongst the highest in the world. I mean, this is just another way that we're being held to ransom, really, because the cost of energy obviously is the price of everything. It flows on to absolutely everything. All comes down to government policy. And why are we not holding these people more accountable, right?
We've got geothermal resources and hydropower resources, and it's never in the news. Nobody ever talks about it. And all we hear about is solar panels and bloody wind farms. Which are
useless. And again, stop using the term wind farms, because farms gives you infers that it's something that is natural. It is not. It is just an absolute joke, and we know that it doesn't work in any way, shape or form. I want to throw this out because we actually have to finish up the show. I got a phone call from Adrian McRae last night, which is something that I really want to talk about very, very quickly. The Great Debate is happening on the 29th of November. Look, it's going to get your tickets. Simple as this. It's the Riverside Theatre. It is Port Hedland versus the Premier. It's going to be a pretty interesting thing. Some great speakers there. Look, fantastic people. The person that I'm most interested to hear from is Malcolm Roberts, Senator, who I've got a hell of a lot of respect for. We were talking about politicians, that we hold in high standing before. That is definitely one that I do. Look, there's other people that I've had a lot to do with in the past as well. There's Gigi Foster, who's a very intelligent person that has got a wealth of information. Look, there is Graham Hood. There's all sorts of people involved in this. So I would strongly recommend that, if you believe in democracy, get yourself down there. I believe the tickets are available there. I'll pop up a link, obviously, on the Facebook page if you want to have a look there, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, I'll throw to Derek to close out the show, my friend.
Exciting times ahead. Revolutionary sort of concepts coming through from someone who thinks outside the box, gets us talking, gets the world talking, and gets companies changing and moving in the way they do business. Really, really exciting opportunities that are coming out the next 4 years, guys. This is super exciting.
All right. In about 20 seconds, what do you think, Shaq, on the way out?
I was beginning to feel a little bit disheartened by the woke stuff and the direction the world was heading in. And I really do think that Donald Trump's going to be able to turn that around. And I'm so optimistic for the future. So really looking forward to it. I hope that he doesn't let us down. But it is ultimately up to us. But I'm really, really pleased to see that we're now heading in the right direction and we can all speak about it openly.
Love it, guys. Fight, fight, fight. That's what I've got to say. And thank you, Catherine, for that last comment. Do you think that Crook will turn up? Not a chance in the world. I've met the guy before and he is as weak as they come. No, he will not show up. He doesn't like accountability. All right, that's the end of the show. This has been The Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia.